What happens when a billionaire spots a black girl begging for milk in a rundown store? Her bold promise to pay him back sparks a chain of events that flips his world upside down. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The fluorescent lights buzzed like a swarm of angry bees in the corner store on 12th and Vine, a grimy little joint in the heart of Philadelphia's forgotten edges. It was the kind of place where the air smelled of stale coffee and desperation, where the shelves sagged under the weight of overpriced canned goods and dreams that never made it out the door. Outside, a December wind howled, rattling the smeared glass windows, but inside, it was hot, stifling, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. Marla Jenkins, 52, stood behind the counter, her arms crossed, her apron stained with yesterday's grease and today's attitude. She wasn't here for the paycheck, barely enough to cover her bus fare, but because standing still kept her sane. Her dark eyes, sharp as a blade, scanned the store. A couple of teens by the chip aisle, a guy in a puffy jacket eyeing the beer cooler, and then a small figure shuffling through the door with a bundle clutched tight. A girl, no older than 9, her braids uneven, her sneakers scuffed to hell, holding a baby wrapped in a threadbare scarf. The girl's name was Nia, and the baby, squirming against the cold, was her brother, Jamal. Marla's gaze softened for half a second before snapping back to steel. Kids like that didn't come in here to buy. They came to beg, or worse, that Nia's steps were careful, deliberate, like she was walking a tightrope. She stopped by the milk cooler, her breath fogging the glass, and stared at a gallon of whole milk like it was the Holy Grail. Jamal whimpered, his tiny fists balled up, his face scrunched in hunger. Marla leaned forward, her voice cutting through the hum of the store. "You got money, kid? This ain't a soup kitchen." Nia flinched, her shoulders curling inward, but she didn't run. She looked up, her brown eyes wide but steady, and said, "I'll pay you back when I grow up. I swear." The words landed like a brick through a window, silencing the store. The teens stopped whispering. The guy by the cooler turned. Even the damn lights seemed to flicker in shock. Marla's jaw tightened. Kids these days, promising fairy tales while the world chews them up. Before Marla could fire back, a man in a tailored navy coat stepped forward from the magazine rack. Calvin Brooks, 58, a black tech mogul who'd built a fortune in cybersecurity and kept his face out of the papers. He was the kind of man who walked into rooms and made people feel underdressed, not because of his clothes, but because of the quiet power in his stride. His salt and pepper hair caught the light, and his deep voice rolled out like thunder on a clear day. "She's not stealing, Marla. She's asking. There's a difference." Marla's eyebrows shot up. "Mr. Brooks? I didn't see you there. I mean, look at her. She's cold, hungry, and braver than half the folks in here." Calvin cut in, his tone sharp enough to slice through her excuses. He crouched beside Nia, his 6-foot frame folding down to meet her eye level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Nia," she whispered, clutching Jamal tighter. "This is my brother, Jamal. He's 1. He's hungry." Calvin's chest tightened. He glanced at the milk, then back at her. "You walked here in this weather? No coat?" Nia nodded, her teeth chattering. "We ran out of milk. Mama's not feeling good. I waited till she was asleep to come." Marla snorted from behind the counter, but Calvin's glare shut her up fast. He stood, his mind already moving. Numbers, plans, the kind of calculations that had made him a billionaire, now zeroing in on a girl who'd just offered her future as collateral for a gallon of milk. "We're getting more than milk," he said, grabbing a basket. "Stick with me." He moved through the aisles like a man on a mission, tossing in formula, bread, peanut butter, diapers, a pack of socks. Things Marla's store didn't usually sell to folks like Nia. The other customers watched, some whispering, some pretending not to stare. "Ain't that the girl from under the Girard Avenue Bridge?" a woman muttered to her friend. "Heard her mama's got issues, poor thing." At the register, Nia struggled to lift the milk onto the counter, her small hands trembling like she was offering up her last shred of pride. "Thank you, sir," she said, barely audible. "I mean it. I'll pay you back." Calvin nodded, his face serious. "I believe you, Nia. Not a doubt in my mind." They stepped outside, the wind slapping their faces like a warning. Nia blinked hard, her eyes watering in the cold. Calvin knelt again. "Where you staying, kid?" She hesitated, then pointed toward the dark silhouette of the bridge in the distance. Under there, by the old pipes. It's dry. I keep Jamal warm with newspapers. A man nearby, loading his car, gasped loud enough to make Calvin turn. The guy looked away, ashamed of his own shock. Calvin's jaw clenched. You want me to walk you back? Nia shrugged, her voice small. People yell sometimes, but you can come. Just don't be loud. Mama gets scared. They walked in silence, the city's pulse thumping around them. Car horns, distant sirens, the rumble of the L overhead. Calvin's polished shoes crunched against the gravel, a stark contrast to Nia's worn sneakers. Under the bridge, the air smelled of damp concrete and despair. A tattered tarp flapped in the wind, and behind it, a woman lay curled on a pile of blankets, her face hidden. She stirred at their footsteps, sitting up fast, her eyes wild. Nia, she snapped, her voice rough. You weren't supposed to leave. This is Mr. Brooks, Mama, Nia said softly. He got us milk. The woman, Denise, maybe 35 but aged beyond her years, squinted at Calvin. Her hair was matted, her clothes mismatched, but there was a fire in her eyes that hadn't gone out. She was just getting help, Calvin said, keeping his distance. She's a good kid. Denise clutched Jamal, who reached for her with tiny hands. She didn't speak, just nodded, her gaze flickering between gratitude and suspicion. Nia handed her the milk, then turned to Calvin. You can go now? We'll be okay. But Calvin didn't move. I'd like to come back tomorrow, if that's all right. Nia tilted her head. Why? Because, Calvin said, his voice low but clear, somebody should. That night, Calvin sat in his Rittenhouse Square penthouse, the city glittering below like a promise he'd never trusted. He couldn't shake the image of Nia's small hands lifting that milk, her voice swearing to pay him back. A kid shouldn't have to make deals with the world to eat. He didn't sleep. Somewhere under a bridge, a girl was humming to her brother, wrapped in his coat. And for the first time in years, Calvin felt something stir, a purpose he hadn't known he'd lost. What happened next flipped his world upside down. You won't believe how this small promise sparked a fight no one saw coming. The next morning, Calvin Brooks traded his tailored suit for a gray hoodie and jeans, blending into the streets of North Philly like he was just another guy grabbing coffee. But his eyes, sharp as ever, scanned the underpass at 12th and Girard with the precision of a man who'd built an empire spotting cracks before they spread. The air was crisp, the kind of cold that bit through denim, and the bridge growled with morning traffic. Calvin's heart thudded as he approached the tarp, a grocery bag swinging in his hand. Oatmeal, eggs, a thermos of hot coffee. He wasn't here to play savior. He was here because Nia's promise had lodged in his chest like a splinter. Nia was awake, curled on a cardboard slab, Jamal tucked against her like a lifeline. Her eyes snapped open at his footsteps, alert, then softened when she saw him. You came back, she said, her voice hoarse but warm. Told you I would, Calvin replied, setting the bag down. Got breakfast. Coffee for your mama. Denise emerged from behind the tarp, her movements slow, like she was testing the ground for traps. Her eyes, bloodshot but piercing, locked on Calvin. You again, she said, her tone a mix of suspicion and exhaustion. What's this? Charity for your ego? Calvin didn't flinch. Food for your kids. Call it what you want. She snorted, grabbing the bag and peering inside. Rich folks love their good deeds. Makes you sleep better, huh? Doesn't make me sleep at all, Calvin shot back, his voice low but pointed. You think I'm here for claps? I'm here because your daughter's got more guts than most CEOs I know. Denise paused, her hand frozen on an egg carton. She looked at Nia, who was sipping coffee from the thermos like it was liquid gold. Tastes like warmth, Nia whispered, her smile small but real. Calvin crouched beside her. You sleep okay? Nia nodded. Jamal didn't cry much. The milk helped. Denise's gaze softened, but only for a second. You with social services? She asked, her voice sharp again. Nope. Just me, Calvin said. No strings, no clipboard. She studied him, her fingers twitching like she was ready to bolt. What's in it for you? Calvin met her eyes. A chance to not walk away. That's enough for now. Denise scoffed, but there was less venom in it. She handed Nia an egg sandwich, then took one herself, chewing slowly, like she was tasting more than just food. You don't belong here, she said finally. This ain't your world. Neither do you, Calvin replied, his voice steady. Or Nia? Or Jamal? She stopped chewing, her eyes narrowing. You don't know me. I know your kid walked a mile in the cold to feed her brother, Calvin said. That tells me enough. Nia broke the tension, her voice small but firm. Mama, he's nice. He didn't yell when I asked for milk. Denise's shoulders sagged, just a fraction. She didn't speak, just wrapped her blanket tighter and sat against the concrete wall. Calvin stood, brushing dirt off his jeans. There's a motel a few blocks away. I can get you a room for a week. Warm bed, hot shower, locked door. Denise's head snapped up. What's the catch? No catch, Calvin said. Just a chance to rest. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes darted to Nia, then Jamal, then back to Calvin. Finally, she nodded. All right, but if this is some game, I'll know. They packed their meager belongings, a few clothes, a cracked plastic cup, Nia's crumpled drawing of a house with stick figures labeled home. Calvin called his assistant, booked the room, and had toiletries delivered before they even reached the motel. The walk was quiet, Nia clutching his hand like it was the only thing keeping her upright. At the motel, a faded sign flickered vacancy, and the lobby smelled of bleach and old dreams. The clerk didn't bat an eye as Calvin paid in cash. The room was small, the carpet worn, the heater rattling like it was on its last legs. But to Nia, it was a palace. She stood in the center, holding Jamal, turning slowly, like she was afraid it'd vanish. It's warm, she whispered. That's the heater, kid, Calvin said, smiling. She's old, but she's trying. Denise dropped their bag on the bed, her face unreadable. She didn't thank him, and he didn't expect her to. Trust wasn't built in a day, not when life had taught you to duck first and ask questions later. Nia set Jamal on the bed, tucking the blanket around him like a pro. Calvin leaned against the doorframe. I'll check in tomorrow. You'll have privacy here. Denise nodded, her voice low. You do this a lot. Playing hero. First time, Calvin admitted. Feels different. She studied him, her eyes searching for a lie. Why us? Because, Calvin said, when a kid like Nia shows up with that kind of heart, you don't walk away. Not if you've got a soul. Nia tugged his sleeve, holding out a folded napkin. I drew this for you, she said shy. He opened it, a pencil sketch of a tall man, a girl, a baby, and a house with home scrawled above. His throat tightened. You're an artist, Nia. I draw when I'm scared, she said. It helps. Keep drawing, he said, slipping the napkin into his pocket. He stepped toward the door, but Denise's voice stopped him. Don't get too close, she said quietly. This life's a mess. It'll drag you down. I'm not here to save you, Calvin said. I'm here to walk with you. She didn't respond, but her silence wasn't cold anymore. It was heavy, like she was carrying the weight of 1,000 what-ifs. Calvin left, the napkin burning a hole in his pocket. Back in his penthouse, the city's lights mocked the emptiness of his polished floors, his sleek counters, his life. He poured a bourbon but didn't drink it. Instead, he sat, staring at Nia's drawing, wondering how a kid's promise could feel heavier than $1 billion deal. The next morning, Calvin returned to the motel, a bag of pastries in hand. But the room was empty. The bed was made, the toiletries untouched, the blankets folded like they were mocking him. His stomach dropped. He stormed to the front desk. The family in 204, where are they? The clerk, a kid with a lazy eye, shrugged. Lady came down at dawn, dropped the key, and left. Didn't say why. Calvin's heart raced. He scanned the street, the alleys, the shadows. Nothing. He knew Denise might run. Fear had a way of outrunning kindness, but not this fast. Not without a word. He pulled out Nia's drawing, the pencil lines smudged but clear. Home. He sat on the curb, the cold seeping through his jeans, and whispered to the empty street. I'm not done, Nia. This wasn't the end. What happened next was a fight for survival that'll leave you speechless. Keep reading to see how it all unraveled. Calvin Brooks didn't go to his office that morning. His assistant's calls, something about a shareholder meeting and a botched contract, went straight to voicemail. He was too busy scouring North Philly, driving past shelters, food banks, and the Girard Avenue Bridge, Nia's drawing tucked in his wallet like a talisman. The city was a maze of gray concrete and broken promises, but Calvin wasn't chasing ghosts. He was chasing a girl who'd sworn to pay him back for milk, and a mother who ran from help like it was a trap. By noon, he hit the Broad Street mission, a crumbling brick building with a line of weary faces out front. A woman at the intake desk, her hair in a tight bun, gave him a lead. Saw a girl with a baby yesterday, she said. Scrawny, big eyes. With a woman, maybe mid-30s, jittery. Took some diapers and bolted. Mentioned something about a food bank near Lehigh. Lehigh. Calvin's pulse quickened. He thanked her and drove, weaving through traffic, his eyes scanning every corner. At a bodega near Lehigh and 10th, he spotted a flyer on a corkboard. Found. Kid's jacket, purple, size XS, Lehigh in front. He called the number. A woman answered, her voice warm but cautious. You know the kid? Name's Nia, about 9, with a baby brother, Jamal. Mother's Denise. I saw them, the woman said. 2 nights ago, outside the laundromat on Lehigh. The girl dropped the jacket. They were headed toward Fairhill Park. Calvin floored it to Fairhill, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows over the cracked pavement. The park was quiet, benches empty, swings creaking in the wind. Then he heard it, a soft hum, like a lullaby fighting to be heard over the city's noise. He followed the sound, past a rusted slide, to a hedge near the park's edge. There was Nia, rocking Jamal, her voice barely above a whisper. Nia, Calvin called, his voice soft but firm. She froze, then turned, her eyes wide. Mr. Brooks, she breathed. You found us. She looked thinner, her lips cracked, but her smile was real. I told Mama you'd come, she said. She got scared. Said people like you always want something. Where's your mama? Calvin asked, crouching beside her. She went for medicine for Jamal, Nia said. This morning. Told me to wait. Calvin's jaw tightened. Hours alone in a park, with a baby? You're not staying here tonight, he said. Come with me. But Mama, we'll leave a note, Calvin said, pulling a pen from his pocket. You and Jamal need warmth. Food. Safety. Nia hesitated, then nodded. Calvin lifted Jamal, his tiny body light as a promise, and Nia clung to his side. This time, he didn't take them to a motel. He took them to his penthouse. The elevator opened with a soft chime, revealing polished floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a view of Philly that screamed money. Nia's eyes widened. You live here. For now, Calvin said. So do you. He set Jamal on the couch, pulling a blanket over him. Nia stood frozen, like she was afraid to touch anything. You got a bedroom? She asked. 3, Calvin said. You get the one with the view. Nia's voice dropped. I've never had a bed. Then it's about time, Calvin said, his smile soft but fierce. He called his friend, Ray Carter, a retired Philly cop turned private investigator. Ray, I need you to find a woman. Denise, mid-30s, thin, dark hair, likely struggling. Last seen near Fairhill Park, looking for medicine. You got yourself a cause, huh? Ray said, his voice gruff but warm. I'm on it. The next morning, Calvin woke to the smell of toast. Nia stood on a stool in the kitchen, watching the toaster like it was a science experiment. Mama says if someone gives you a roof, you owe them something back, she said. Your mama's right, Calvin said, grabbing coffee. But this toast is payment enough. Ray called at noon. Found her. She's at a clinic on Germantown Avenue. Confused, barefoot, asking for baby aspirin. She's shaken but safe. My wife's with her, calming her down. Calvin drove to the clinic, a small building tucked behind a pawn shop. Denise sat on a couch, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes distant but alive. Where's Nia? She asked, her voice cracking. Safe, Calvin said. With Jamal at my place. Denise sagged with relief, then tensed. I didn't mean to leave them. Jamal was coughing, and I panicked. I know, Calvin said. You were trying. She looked at him, tears spilling. Why do you keep showing up? Because, Calvin said, you and those kids deserve more than just surviving. She nodded, slow and heavy. I want help, but I'm scared I'll mess it up. We all mess up, Calvin said, his voice steady. Doesn't mean you don't get another shot. They returned to the penthouse, Denise clinging to Nia and Jamal like they were her anchor. Over lunch, grilled cheese and soup. Nothing fancy, Denise spoke softly. We lost our apartment 2 years ago. I've been running ever since. Calvin nodded. You don't have to run alone anymore. That night, Nia drew again, this time with colored pencils Calvin had bought. She handed him a sketch, 4 stick figures under the word family. This one's better, she said. It's perfect, Calvin replied, his voice thick. but the peace was fragile. A week later, Ray called with bad news. Denise's ex, Marcus, is sniffing around. Got out of jail last month. Asking about her and the kids at shelters. Says he's owed something. Calvin's blood ran cold. Owed? He's their father? Was, Denise said, overhearing. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. He left when I was pregnant with Jamal. Came back meaner, saying I owed him for his trouble. Threatened to take the kids if I didn't pay up. Calvin's voice darkened. He's not touching them. Ray arranged a restraining order, but Denise shook her head. Paper won't stop Marcus. He doesn't care about rules. Then we'll make him care, Calvin said, his tone like steel. The next evening, the penthouse intercom buzzed. Delivery for Denise Walker, a voice growled. Calvin's heart stopped. He checked the camera. No delivery guy, just a figure in a hoodie, face hidden. He called Ray. He's here. Patrol's on the way, Ray said. Keep them inside. Calvin locked the doors, grabbed a stun baton he'd bought reluctantly, and told Denise to take the kids to the bedroom. 15 minutes later, Ray and a cop arrived. Marcus had slipped away, but the message was clear. He wasn't done. Calvin looked at Denise, her face resolute despite the fear. I want to face him, she said. I need to tell him he's got no power over me. That's dangerous, Calvin said. It's necessary, she replied, her voice unwavering. Ray arranged a sting at a dive bar on Broad Street, where Marcus hustled pool. That night, Calvin and Denise waited in an unmarked SUV, Ray monitoring a drone feed. When the cops moved in, Marcus didn't stand a chance. Cuffed before he could finish his drink. Denise stepped out, her face calm, and faced him. You don't scare me anymore, she said, her voice steady. You'll never touch my kids. You're done. Marcus snarled, but the cuffs held tight. Denise didn't flinch. Back in the SUV, she exhaled, her body trembling but lighter. That was for me, she said. Not him. Calvin nodded. You're a damn warrior. The safe house in Germantown came next, a small brick home with a porch and a backyard where Nia could chase fireflies. Calvin paid 6 months up front. Denise planted herbs by the windows, and Nia lined her books under her bed. One night, Denise looked at Calvin across the porch. You regret this yet? Never, he said. You and those kids? You're my reason to keep going. She smiled, small but real. You didn't save us, Calvin. You gave us a chance to save ourselves. Weeks later, Denise spoke at a community center, sharing her story with women like her, survivors, fighters. I begged for milk and found a miracle, she said, her voice breaking but strong. I thought I was broken, but I was just beginning. The room roared with applause. Nia ran up, holding a paper crown. You're the queen of brave, mama. Denise knelt, laughing through tears. Then you're the princess. Nope, Nia said. I'm the writer. Back home, Denise wrote her story, page by page, in a small room she'd claimed as her own. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was rebuilding, reclaiming, rewriting her legacy. And Calvin, standing in the doorway, knew he'd found something too. Not just a cause, but a home. This is the moment it all came together. You won't want to miss how Denise and Nia turned pain into power. Stay with them to the end.